Hello, my name is Brent Frain. I'm the host for Canadians with Disabilities and their Allies. You can check out PWD Allies on YouTube and on your favorite podcast to keep up to date on all the latest shows. Today, I have a fantastic show for everyone to listen to and watch if you're tuning in today live on YouTube. I have a roundtable. Today, I have five, that's it, guests joining me today, and we're all going to be talking about income, income inequalities across Canada for PWD, on how the system is not designed for PWD. Legislative poverty is definitely going to be one of the big topics that we're going to be talking about, and a lot more. So tune in. I'm looking forward to today's show, and how basic income, UBI, you name it, we're all going to talk about it. This is going to be fantastic.
There's a story of a lovely lady who was very
and we call it the basic income brass. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's almost like the PWD bunch. But no, what were you saying about that one before we started? Not the PWD bunch. It was the
PWD bunch, yeah.
Or
the Misfits.
Or the Derbians, or
the Misfit Toys.
Misfit Toys. Misfit Toys.
Yeah, so we have we'll go ahead and Neil, you can mention who's on the show today with us.
Well, we have you, Brent. You're the host.
Yes,
the lovely beloved host. Then we have Joseph Vandermeer to your right, and then there's me. Hello, and we have Tom Poxon.
Hello,
and we have Dan Trace.
Hello.
We have Cassandra Pollock, and we have MJ Phillips.
Hello.
At the bottom.
And welcome, MJ. You're new to the show, and it's great to have everybody joining us on today. And so, first of all, I just want to thank everyone for joining in on this special occasion, our first roundtable discussion. So I'm going to pass the mic over. Let's see, randomly. I'm going to start with MJ because MJ is new to the show.
Okay. Well, I'm looking at the idea of universally available basic income. The idea, quite simply, is we get rid of all the terms and conditions. And the idea is, like, we have all these benefit programs, but we have all these people managing it. And half the time is they find reason to go and deny you access to funding that you've already paid into. For example, unemployment insurance, I'm going to go with this, is if you're fired or if you quit, right? You're denied insurance, but you've paid into it. So to me, when you take a look at that, you realize you're just being taxed. The money's being stolen, right? Yeah. And if you become disabled, right, and you end up on disability from unemployment, they run you through the ringer and they deny you every possible, as many times as they possibly can, right? Which just makes it, for a lot of people that end up on disability, they just give up, get into drugs, and then become homeless, or vice versa, become homeless and then end up in drugs and on the street. And when you have all these terms and conditions that are put in the way for people with, like, mental health disorders is a very big issue that we have, that put people out on the street. And these people have a hard time in complying with these terms and these demands that they throw at you. They say, you've got X amount of days to comply before we cut you off. And they do these things to you. And, it's like Canada Pension, If you're disabled trying to get Canada pension, they run you through the ringer. You know, even though you've paid into it for most of your life or even a part of your life, they make it difficult for you to go and get access to money that you've paid into. So my idea is simply, let's just get rid of the gatekeepers. Tell the people, you know, we can take it or leave it. It's the same thing, for example, with WCB. You're injured. Then they say, oh, well, we determine you're not injured anymore, but you can't do anything. But then they want you to go find a job. Then you can't do anything. So they do all of these things. And I personally believe, and this is just one of my contentions in doing my research, is I'm going to go and read a line from the Constitution Act from 1982, number 12. And it says, everyone has the right not to be subjected to any cruel or unusual treatment or punishment. Now, to me, by having people that are disabled running through hoops in terms of conditions, you're doing exactly that. And I want to get rid of that. I want to make it so you can either take it or leave it if you don't want to. If you don't want the money, you don't have to have it. If you need the money or want the money, you can take it. And this is what we need to do to eliminate this poverty that's been legislated and has created ample amount of homelessness in this country. And we need to put an end to this. And this needs just to be stopped. And that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
Cassandra was nodding her head, so I'll let Cassandra pipe in next.
Oh no, I am
Go for it, Cassandra.
MJ and I,
Thanks,
in spite
MJ.
of in spite of the previous conversation, we were actually very much on the same page. And you know, I actually know the person that started the parliamentary petition that actually got the whole disability benefit thing going. And when that came into fruition, what we were actually talking about was a basic income type model, because provincial programs had failed us in exactly the way that MJ had said, and the fact that a lot of us have paid into these other programs and not been able to collect from them. You know, it just makes more sense. And so, yeah, I get you. I've also looked into the Constitution many, many times about how, you know, the cruel and unusual punishment, the right to life, liberty, and security of person. The only time those things are supposed to be taken away is in times of is in the interest of fundamental justice. And I just don't see where there's argument for taking those rights away for people with disabilities, just because we're disabled. You know, so that was what the intention was. It was saying that look, provinces have failed us. They haven't done anything in decades. And we want the federal government to take it out of their hands and give us a basic income for people with disabilities, so that they have the same mobility rights that other Canadians have, that pensioners have, and that we could, you know, and to get rid of the gatekeepers, because we're unduly punished and made to jump through hoops just to get a benefit that most of us have paid into it. And if we haven't paid into it, our parents have paid into it. And it just doesn't make any sense. So
when you talk about gatekeepers and clawbacks, like I myself am a victim of a survivor's clawback. I keep saying that, I know, but one of the now I forget what I was going to say now. Maybe I should let somebody else talk.
Well,
yeah,
when it comes back to
yeah.
the
I was just gonna quickly add on the end that you know, that was the intention, but unfortunately, they let interpret their personal interpretations and possible charter challenges get in the way of them actually doing it that way. And that's why Carla chose to do the path that she thought was the easiest. Arguably, it's not, because they still have to work out regulations, but we wanted it enshrined in the Constitution, so it was something that could not be, because once it's constitutionally mandated, it cannot be taken away. They can improve upon it, but they can't make it less than it was. So they can only improve upon it. So
I remember what I was going to say now. When I put in my last complaint, I did another human rights complaint, and I mean it's probably pointless, But one of the big things I mentioned in there was basically how stratified, I use the word basically stratification of discrimination. Like there's it's layered discriminations. It's we've talked about before. It's disabled versus disabled, and it's like, well, you get your clawback, and you get the exemption, you get housing, and you get a market
You can
rent.
have it, but you can't. Yes.
Yeah, so it's all this like playing against each other, right? So I mentioned the word stratification. That's basically what it is, right? It's like we said, jumping through hoops, and it's like a stratification of like these people get this, and it's like we're fighting against each other. Like the ministry makes you fight against each other. It's like, well, this group of PWD get this, and this PWD don't get that, or whatever, and it's just stupid.
Yeah,
Well, and fighting against different levels
other.
of government too. Like they got it also pits different levels of government against each other because they're all making all these different programs, and then they're fighting about who gets the right transfer payments, and we don't know, and how they admit there's no rules over how they administer those transfer payments for their population.
We have to get them onto the same page so that there's an understanding that there's equality across the board. Because right now, like talking about the clawbacks, like there's so many all these clawbacks, EI, WCB. I had a battle with WCB myself. My gosh, fighting with the ministry. Where did you read that? I go, it's on page 2, section A. Where? I don't see that. I go, flip on your computer. I said, are you using DOS? What? Are you using DOS? They were just beyond themselves, right?
Yeah.
So,
this is the problem. A lot of these people are just hired. They're not truly trained to understand the intricacies of the issues that they're dealing with.
No.
And it's like when I was audited, they threw me 5 audits all at the same time.
wow.
They pushed me to the seriously edge of seriously committing suicide, because I was like, what the does it take to make you sons of bitches stop? You got 5 audits on me. Do you people not pay attention? What is wrong with you? I get told I'm just doing my job. I said, we heard the same thing at the Nuremberg trial, and we didn't give them any quarter either. I'm at that point where it's like, I don't have any more sympathy for government workers who are just going to use a line that say, I'm just doing my job.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but that's no longer acceptable in today's society. 50 years ago, we might have pushed through it and said, yeah, okay. But now today, people have been awakened and have woken up to how they believe that humanity should be treated with equality and dignity and respect.
Oh, totally. And that's it's about modernizing. It's about having the moral compass, right? It's having like you said, respect, dignity, autonomy, being able to make decisions, for yourself, what your needs are based on your circumstances. So if a person wants to be able to go from one province to another one, oh no, it's like a gatekeeper. You need that pass. You've gone more than 30 days. Yeah, can I
whole pass?
Yeah. Can I go, please?
Yeah, the whole pass. Yeah.
Let's continue going counterclockwise, and we'll have Dan chime in if you want, Dan.
Dan, how you doing, Dan?
Two of the big major problems is one, like one of you alluded to it earlier. It's like we got, for us here, for example, in Toronto, we got an NDP known mayor, we got a buffoon for a PC premier, and we got a liberal, prime minister. So I don't know how anybody expects any of them to get together and make anything work. They can barely make it work when it is their own party, let alone fucking different people, right? I deal with it with a nice old big joint once in a while, right? Like, because sometimes you just sit there and you're scratching your head, right? And the other problem is, as you alluded to earlier, also like the infighting. They all pit us all once against each other, and especially here in the city, a lot of small interest groups that just want to hear a singular narrative, and they have there's no fiber in their body that can get together like this with a group of people, and whether you agree or not, spit out ideas that'll work for the community as a whole, right? And that's what we got to do, or else you're gonna be that hamster on the wheel, right? And there's not enough weed in the world that can fix that problem.
Yeah, there's so many people, lately, neighbors. I've got neighbors in my community that are just like suffering. You can tell looking at grocery stores too. You're seeing what they're buying. You look in the malls, they're going to food courts rather than going to stores. And so it shows you right there that income inequality, that people are they're still wanting to get involved in the community, but you look in the food court, they're all in there just shoveling away. But you don't see them with bags. You don't see them in the stores, and so retailers are suffering. So you put the money back into the system by regenerating that income. Like you put the income on the floor, and people are going to be smart in general. I mean, they're going to be smart. They're going to buy what they need, and maybe have a little bit of extra, or maybe a lot extra. It depends. And we'll dive into into that topic for sure.
We've got the two basic income guys up next here, so we'll start with Tom.
Yeah, okay.
Tom is next up.
Hello. I was thinking as people were talking, I was like, one thing that came to mind was a U.S. disabled UBI advocate who, as she explained, well, if you want to get people working, which I mean, like I don't focus on jobism, but if you do, the system in welfare and disability are both absolutely terrible, because as she explained, it's like you get through all these fiery hoops and then you're like, don't move, which is the absolute last thing you want. And when there was that guys were recently talking about, like, here in BC, Mike Harcourt and Gordon Campbell. And this is kind of leading me into what I kind of was writing about today, like think about what I was going to talk about, and how the Mike Harcourt thing, considering the timing of it, didn't make me do this face, like surprise, because for decades before that, we had a neoliberal movement, which also brought in, as Guy Standing, my kind of hero in the movement, this guy, this book, talks about the Precariat Charter, talks about how a utilitarian kind of model, not utilitarianism itself is bad, it's just a philosophical concept, but the neoliberal movement of getting everything out of the way of the market brought in this utilitarian mentality of separating the majority from other people and focusing on the majority instead of anybody else. And Trudeau talks like this with, like, the middle class and those looking to join them, and everything focused, like with Carla Qualter, like I said in that speech on the legislative lawn. It's like, it's funny how her whole focus is jobs, disability, inclusion. It's like, it's not just disabled people themselves. And so you have that. Victor Schvetz, another one of my kind of, he's not actually a basic income advocate, but he's kind of a hero of mine. As he explained, it's like since 71, we've had these two ADHD, so I'm talking fast. we've had these two twin hurricanes of technology and finance. And that rentierism, all these other disruptions. So you have a situation growing where you have the precariat rising, you have costs going up and wages stagnating, going down. And of course we have polarization. You don't grow, as Bruce Hornsby said, you don't grow good seed on a barren ground. So basic income is a way of pushing back against that. And like, as Eleanor Ostrom, the late Nobel laureate, said, there's no such, you should never focus on panaceas. And I don't think basic income is a panacea, or a job guarantee, or universal basic services, or any of these things. But you put them together with basic income as the anchor and other things that are necessary on top. And then we have a much stronger feeling of inherent trust at the base. And I think that's absolutely essential. So that's me.
Thanks, Tom, on that. And I see so much disparity across the nation. People saying, well, the cost of everything's up. Gas prices just went up this morning. Metro Vancouver, $2.14.9 a liter. In Victoria, $2.12.9. And they say,
I watch it with gas. It's funny, I kind of watch it with gas now. Yeah, I watch it with gas now because I now drive, but I used to always watch it with those Campbell's soup cans, the Chunkies.
Oh, yes.
Back like maybe 10, they used to be like always $2, like not on sale, $2. Now they're about $4. Now whose income has doubled in that time?
Nobody's.
So it just keep going up. And then what's happened in the last like 3 years is it just went like that, like the hill, like Great Bear Tungle on the Coquihalla. And now it's like all of a sudden it's really starting to hurt. And it's like, well, it's been coming for years. It's just, they just pushed it that little bit harder. And meanwhile, at the same time, you got the question of automation coming at you. And it's like, that's where Victor Schvetz comes in and said, as he explained, that like the marginal pricing power of labor is going down slowly to this number, 0. And no one works hard enough to get ahead of that. And that's what's been going on. You had like in the 70s, you had like my dad, he worked at BC Hydro, one job that took care of everything. Then my mom started working as well. And then when I graduated in 92, we had a guy come to our school and say, don't expect the same job your whole life. And now people today are like, don't expect the same job your whole week. So like you can see the way it's kind of going. Like,
Especially in Alberta, yeah.
Yeah. So having that kind of like, as Guy Standing said, like the income distribution system of the 20th century is broken down. Basic income is like, if the money is in owning stuff, then make everyone co-owner of stuff. Like this, I also really like that was that Commonwealth.
Oh no,
Canada.
you sound like a communist.
Oh well, no, no, that's
don't get
not,
me
no.
I'm being facetious. I'm
That's
being
fine.
facetious.
Yeah.
Can I jump in on that? Because
Sure,
I
go.
used to work.
Sure.
I used to work at a gas station,
Oh.
and it was I'm just say the brand. It was Shell, and
Mm.
every morning we had to go out to the nearest gas stations that were around us. Right, all the gas stations, find the one with the highest price, right? Then call into the system and tell it what the highest price was near us. So we get the call back, and it would tell us that, oh, you need to go and raise your price like right beside it. So, I mean, when you sit here and you listen to the stories about how, these parliamentary inquiries about all of this stuff, I mean, as somebody that's worked on the ground and worked at a gas station, I honestly think that we're deliberately being misled on the price of everything.
Yes.
With regards to gas prices.
Yeah.
The other problem, the true problem here is the carbon tax is an insidious regressive tax.
Yeah.
And, unfortunately, I mean, I'm one of these people. I would love to do everything we could for climate change or, and deal with the climate, but I want to do it with a direct approach to the problem, not a nebulous approach to the problem that the carbon tax does.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say something very unpopular for somebody living in Alberta is that I actually don't have a problem with the carbon tax, because when you do break it down, it's actually not the biggest part of the problem. They keep telling us supply chain, transportation, blah, blah, blah. But when you really look at it, the farmer, I can drive 15 minutes. I can get to a farm. I'm I'm 5 minutes from downtown Calgary.
Yeah.
And the farmers aren't getting more. And we're paying more. The farmers are getting less. They're paying more for the cost of their doing business and producing. And the only people that are making money are these oligopolies of grocery stores.
Yeah.
And I think, that's they want to blame it on things like the cost of transportation and the cost, but they're shipping oranges from South Africa when they can get them from California.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or
make a greenhouse here and grow them locally.
Yeah.
well, you can. I mean, they have banana trees that were starting to produce on the West Coast just as I was leaving to move to Alberta 20 years ago. I mean,
especially in Victoria here.
yeah, but you know what I mean? Like I got mad when I heard people saying that they were paying $10 for a head of lettuce, and you can grow a head of lettuce all year round inside your house for nothing.
Yeah.
And so I think that's part of the disconnect is people are, the oligopolies want us to think that these things like the carbon tax and things like that are actually what's causing the prices to raise. But then when you look at their profits, their profits are they're the only ones making a profit, and everybody else is losing on either end. And so I think that's a bigger part of the issue.
I wanted to allow Joseph to pipe in too. He's having some technical difficulties, he told me, but you're still here now.
Hopefully it's all cleared up.
So so give us the blue pill or the red pill, Joseph.
Blue pill or the red pill. So I understand why so many people endorse universal basic income. Okay. The only reason why I don't endorse it is because of the price tag. And I'll explain why very quickly. And that is that the price tag is way too much. I mean, if you were to give somebody $2,000 a month, right? That's, you know, $2,000 a month times 30 million people. And when you plug that into a calculator, you start to realize over a 12-month period that it's twice as large as the whole entire federal budget. So at that point, it's a little too much for the Canadian economy right now. I'm not talking about forever. I'm talking about right now. Because as it stands right now, that's like 200% GDP or whatever, right? Like it's like way too much. Where a guaranteed livable basic income, one that has the lowest clause history, that's what we want to entice the working class to pay for it. And no offense, Chrystia Freeland, in her official response to a petition on GLBI, and it's on the government website, it states that one of her reasons why the Liberal Party has objected to it so far is because the last PBO report in 2021 said that the family that makes the second out of 5 categories of income, the second lowest, would lose $5,000 a year in tax credits. So she said that because of that, because the average Canadian worker would lose $5,000, it's not good for the government. Well, no offense, but if you change the clawback, now that entire category of the population is in a positive.
Yes.
And they didn't put that in the report. And
Oops.
that is why Greg went to Winnipeg and went to the Manitoba, Liberals, and went before the entire national convention, and GLBI is getting a new report because that class of worker is the one that the population numbers, the math says if they get support, the entire economy will do better.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna just a quick thing before because MJ wants to jump in.
Speech.
Yeah.
Before MJ jumps in, I just want to say, because you guys are there is a difference. A lot of people are confused when they hear universal basic income. They think, a lot of people think of a lot of what you're talking about, Joseph, but there's a difference between a guaranteed basic livable income versus a universal basic income versus other forms of basic income. And maybe you guys could tag team and explain that, the differences.
But before they jump in, though, it's if you just give people the money, it's gonna benefit their local economy. And but if they're paying all their money out in rent and all the high expenses, they got nothing left, and they're going help. So anyway, I'll pass the mic over. I just wanted to throw that little tidbit in.
Tom, you go first. With universal.
MJ has this had his hand up the whole too. We'll get the
and then
Sorry.
Yeah.
Not a problem.
So you want to pipe in, MJ, or
okay,
or
sure. I mean, this is why I went and calculated to be a universally available basic income. To the idea that it's available, you can take it or leave it. You're not forced upon it, right? And the problem is one of the things that I had to realize is our own Constitution Act says you have freedom of association. Well, this is a form of association with your government. Now, you should have the freedom to either associate or disassociate from it. You should have that right. If you want it, take it. If you don't, don't. So to me, when we go and say everyone's forced to take it, there's a lot of people that A, don't need it, B, don't need it for one, and C, it just adds to the extra, or for people that just don't want it, right? They don't want it for whatever moralistic reason they choose. They don't want it. So fine, don't take it. That's not a problem with me. So simplifying this in saying it's available if you choose to take it, that's it, would solve all of the problems that we currently have. I mean, when you take a look at the stories that you hear from people dealing with disabilities, mental health, physical health, trying to go and find a job in this day and age, they put out resumes everywhere, but no one's going and calling them back. I'm hearing these stories from people, so there's a lot going on here that is not working. And one of the things that I've looked at is the government, their main concern should be for the people, right? That should be their concern, right? And it's not. And their only concern is for business. And we're being cut out of the equation, and we're just the byproduct of their concern of, of the taxation and all the rest of this stuff.
Mhm.
And to me, there needs to be a rebalancing of where we have a good relationship with business and a good relationship with government as the people. And without these things, we're not going to be able to solve the problems, and they're going to continue to get worse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there was a pilot project that was done just recently. I'm sure you've probably seen it, MJ, and everybody else on the roundtable. Just recently, $7,500 was just given out to a group of people just to see what it would do, and it changed their whole life. I mean, people went out and they actually bought things that they actually needed. They didn't go and buy drugs and alcohol or whatever, right? I mean, they actually,
less than 1% was in that study saying that they went to drugs or alcohol as a form of stress relief.
And now they apparently was so successful. Now the same project they want to give $8,500 now to another set of population. So that goes to show.
Give it to me.
I can see that that's what's getting worked on, though. That's what they're working on, obviously. But in BC, go figure, there was that pilot. I mean, and I'll get Tom's take on that. Do
we want to resume our cage match between Tom and Joseph?
It's not a cage match.
You go first.
Finish him. Where do I? Okay, there's a lot of things to cover here.
We're doing more of the universal versus GLBI, and I'm always the GLBI.
Like I always come back to that little where to start. That little image of like Lord of the Rings, where it's like all the guys and like the guys are coming in towards the cavern, and it's like UBI guy, GLBI guy, whatever, and it's like an anti-basic income person just entered the chat, and all of us are like, like all of a sudden we're on the same side. Now the interesting thing about the 7,500 thing.
That's my.
Get off my taxes.
I mean, well, this is where to be honest, I was just actually taking a look at that, and they said that depression fell by 9%.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If depression falls by 9%, how much money are the pharmaceutical companies not getting?
Yeah.
Yeah, most definitely.
Right.
Definitely.
Back to my oligopoly theory.
Right. I mean,
so
they want
certain people push back. Yeah.
They want to keep us poor, depressed, and angry at the same time, so that we end up taking these drugs. So there was
that thing Scott Senton said of like how that one when Richard Nixon was trying to pass the family assistance plan, which is a really stripped down negative income tax thing. One guy was complaining that people who would iron his shirt, but with like the $7,500 thing, it's like. There's four of them now, because they've also had the one in, what was it, Detroit, that was successful as hell. There was one in Liberia. That's like the people complain about the Vancouver one is, oh well, they avoided people with actual substance issues. Okay, fine. Let's look at Liberia, where they literally gave it to a whole bunch of homeless people, and they didn't give a damn about who had this issue or that issue. And people with drug issues, petty criminals, they improved their lives as well. Same thing happened in London. But what was the other thing? With my project, it's about like anywhere I can get, like, to me, as soon as one country does it, and South Africa is looking like it's getting closer and closer. Hopefully we do it. Hopefully, I don't want everyone to do it. But as soon as one does it, the dominoes start falling. So in some places, like the UBI is kind of like, it's like the hashtag on X is like one of the trending ones people look for. So it's kind of like, if the US does a UBI, great. If we do our GLBI, great. Like as soon as one of us does it, it's on. The game's on. And like I'm a member of Basic Income BC, and I also work with UBI Works. And there was a thing that went out, and it's on Coalition Canada's website. I think it's on Basic Income BC's website, which is a thing we kind of like an all kind of group agreement on, like the basic income that we're aiming for, that we're petitioning for, and it is a GLBI. Like that's kind of Canada's take. I do have a soft spot for UBI because, like, to me, the nice thing about it is it bypasses, like, there's another book I could bring over, which is Gareth Stedman Jones's book, An End to Poverty with a question mark. And it's because poverty is a 300-year-old shouting match. And it's like, who's going to come up with the thing that, like, ends the shouting match? So that, like, nice thing about UBI is it skirts around that. It goes, no, this isn't about poverty. You get this because you're Canadian. So it bypasses all that utilitarian stuff and goes straight there. Like the thing I got frustrated with the CDB, and to me it's a utilitarian thing, which is like, it took 3 years all the way to the bitter last hour for this
3 years.
Which it's like, this probably has more stuff in it than that thing. Like, like you feel like you could have gone to a Starbucks on a Saturday and scribbled down something with more substance in that thing. It's
you wouldn't have to wait that long for coffee then.
we have a question from the chat. We have a question from the chat, Linda, and she says, "What's going to happen when more jobs become automated and nobody has a job?"
Yeah, this is one of the funny. This is one of the funny things. Like,
volunteerism.
Well, I was going to say that's one of the biggest arguments for UBI, by the way. Yeah.
It's kind of funny. Like, you'll be watching a video, like I have a thing called the playlist list, which I've been building up at work, just because I'm bored. And, but it's like, I've listened to all these things, and it's so funny. You'll have people that are critical of basic income, but they'll start with like, yeah, automation's coming. And so they're probably going to bring in UBI, but then everyone's going to quit their jobs. And it's like, you just said. You just said. So, like, some jobs, I think, like, I agree with Guy on this one. It's like, what we should automate jobs that nobody wants to do anyway, and like, and people will be freed up to do stuff that, like, work will always exist. Jobs are a subset of work. There's all kinds of work that needs to be done, especially as we're dealing, if you believe in climate change, with climate change. Like, okay, like, we got, are we gonna try to go for more light transit? Are we gonna try to build other kinds of infrastructure? There's lots of things that we need to do. There's care work and creative work and commons. And
we need
it just shifts, right? When they automate, it happened in the Industrial Revolution. It happened when computers first started coming on the scene. I remember my grandfather back in the 70s worrying about the jobs it was going to take. And ultimately, there is a transition period. And if we're hoping we've learned from those transition periods and we'll do it better with the new technological jump, but what happens is jobs don't stop, they just change. Those jobs aren't there anymore, but new jobs take their place.
Like, the kind of thing
like
the millennial came, it's like poof,
like, for example, it's like when cars came, hundreds of thousands of people, or millions or more, were put out of a job of scooping up the animal manure in the streets. Those jobs were full-time jobs that people just lost, right? And they had to figure something else out. And to me, part of the problem here is within the system that they've built, they've made it so that once you're stuck in a job, you can't go and get out. Or if you quit, you're stuck back to go back in the system. You don't have time to breathe. Say, you know what? I want to go and retrain. I want to do this. I want to do that. They make it very difficult to even retrain. You've gotten an unemployment fund that basically has sat there since Wazoo, and they've not bothered to go and actually put it to a real use of retraining people that need to be retrained.
We just say, launch the income now.
So the real issue is getting past this. I don't know what is it, institutional ignorance, and is really where we're at.
It's like systemic ignorance.
It's like
Dan is in the park right now. He's out in the park.
Have you used it yet, Brent?
But it's like jobs are changing.
Don't join the megaphone club, Brent. They're not lovely people. Don't do that, buddy.
I was just thinking about, like,
so somebody earlier said, why do they ignore us, or why do they hate us, right? All disabled people and shit. And it's like, they don't have the concept of what we go through on a daily basis, and they don't understand that we actually do pay taxes, right? You pay taxes on this, that, and the other. Personally, none of it affects me except for the grocery inflation, because obviously I love to eat. but I don't drive, I don't travel, I don't, you know what I mean? So none of that
Yeah.
affects. But when I see people
Do you like to
dying,
breathe or
yeah,
Well, yeah.
people dying needlessly.
eating,
but
breathing?
then the question that I get from a lot of the public out here is, okay, we need extra money. We all know that. How on God's green earth are we going to convince people like Mr. Trudeau or Mr. Ford to give disabled people an extra $2,000-3,000 a month? And I have no answer for it, right? Like how?
Well,
Yeah.
I think I was going to say, I think a part of the problem, like I've been advocating for, you know, we should be measuring the poverty line based on what the living wage calculation. And the whole reason for that is you can then say, okay, we're going to make sure that the minimum wage is a living wage.
Right.
And then that gives you the leverage to go then say, well, it costs 40% more to live with a disability. And then you're giving people, do you know what I mean? So then everybody, that's the baseline for everybody, whether it's a minimum wage or whether it's a disability income, whether it's whatever, that's the baseline for everybody. And then you're raising everybody up.
I wondered if that
do you
was
have,
a good.
actually, I have a question for Sandra. I apologize. Do you actually have the living wage information on you or available?
You know what? I'm in the middle of packing and I packed all my calculations away, but
Okay.
I've done
Because yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was gonna say that maybe this is a good segue for DERB. I noticed that Joseph has got his DERB sign out, so I don't know if that's a good segue. For
I
DERB.
say right now it's a good time for DERB. You say make the announcement, DERB.
It's a most definite time for DERB. I signed a petition for DERB. Have you? If not, there's the link right there. You know, right there on the screen.
Yeah.
And do that letter writing campaign too, because that floods your MPs and ministers' offices. Just DERB it.
DERB it good.
Yeah.
It's derb.ca for those that can't quite read the.
You know, and I say do it.
DERB.ca.
DERB.ca, yeah.
DERB.ca, and you can do either /E4519, which is the petition through Bernita Zerlo. And then there is also E4550, which is the petition through Mike Maurice. And so /Arise, which is the AISH Arise for Income Equality petition that goes through New Mode, and that one is starting to gain steam. That one's nearly 100 people already, and that one is actually much more detailed. And when I signed it, it went to many MPs. It went to the MP for Health, for yourself, or to Justin Trudeau, to Chrystia Freeland. Like there was a list of MPs that it went to. It figures it out based on your address. So sign the New Mode one.
That's
and
very
that
impressive.
one will be sent out to them.
If you give people more income, it puts less strain on the healthcare system.
Healthcare, it improves your education system, it improves your job prospects. As people put more money locally, because lower incomes put more money locally, you want the low income to have more money, so that way they spend it to the people who have the middle income, who then give the money to the people with the rich income. That's the way. Welcome to capitalism.
Trickle up versus trickle down.
And
it's like the ladder effect.
Trickle up, not trickle down. Yes.
I was gonna do, based on MJ's question to me about what I remember off the top. I don't remember all the regional breakdowns, but I remember off the top of my head, like Spring Financial basically averaged out the livable wage calculation across Canada into a singular. And it averaged out to 45. So this is based on an able-bodied person, 45,000 annually.
Yeah.
Right.
So you can add, so you can add the 40% and minus the averaged out 30% for income tax, and that's about where we should be.
See, you know,
if you have a person who goes to a job that is more than 50 kilometers away, you can add an extra 25% of that income.
Right.
See, one of the biggest issues here is, you know, when it comes to taxation, is while they put so much work into taxing the regular person, they don't put the same amount into taxing corporations that are making hundreds of billions of dollars. And that's where well, yeah, God forbid they get, they get
Yeah.
their $20 billion in stock options and all the rest of that stuff. Yes. And to me, it's like, we're not asking for a little bit from all these companies. You're making 20 billion. We're just saying we'd like another billion or two. We're not hurting you, right? We're not
No.
hurting you.
No.
We're
Yeah.
just taking a little pinch, and that's it from
And they
everyone
won't
equally, right?
Yeah.
Well, and
it's one in
they wouldn't
five
exist
Canadians now.
without us.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They only
So-
exist because they have consumers like us. So
Yeah.
And
Well,
and
exactly.
1 in 5 Canadians.
And they wouldn't
1
even
in
feel it.
5 Canadians are disabled.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that numbers keeps growing as every day goes by.
And we're all paying a crip tax on everything.
Yeah.
Double it, that is zero.
population review, the
Yeah.
population review that was just came out with StatsCan yesterday or today, whichever it was. The new StatsCan report on immigration and all that also showed that for the very first time in Canadian history, people over 65 outnumber 0 to 14. It has now happened. There is
Yeah.
more
Whoa.
people retired than approaching the working age.
and they
Yeah.
predicted it for how long?
Well, that's
Like, how
over
long have
20
they been
years.
telling
Well,
us?
this is
Yeah.
just it.
Over
Like
20 years.
Evelyn Forget in the book that I just put out, the Wealth UBI book Wednesday or whatever it is. As she said, like the labor shortage thing was actually already predicted in 2018 because of this. And like I'm in a band, I'm in a band, man. But my flute player is
Ours goes to 11.
yeah. Our flute player's in his 70s. Our guitarist, he just retired. But as the flute player Woody, as he said, like when the pandemic struck, he's like, if I was working and I was getting close to retirement age, or I was in that range, yeah, I'd retire now. I mean, you got this invisible thing that could kill you that's floating around out there. It's like, yeah, maybe I'll call it a day now. So it just exacerbated what was already happening.
Yeah.
And then
Well,
there was all kinds of other things that happened.
Well,
So
and
it's
we go
just-
back to
Yeah.
automation. I apologize. We go back to automation.
Yeah.
I mean, all these low end jobs, like we've got the vacuum cleaners, the self cleaning vacuum cleaners that'll drive around. Now they're building lawnmowers to go and mow your lawn. So there goes those jobs
Yeah.
for people that you made money off of that, and then you got they're expanding that into janitorial jobs. So now we're going to get commercial systems that'll drive around and wash the floor in the middle of the night.
Janitor
go-
here.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
They
Exactly.
self-
There you go. I've
Yeah.
been a janitor too, right? So those
The
jobs are now
self-driving
gonna go-
cars, the self-driving cars scare the shit out of me though.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they scare me too.
Get those
They're
vacuum
getting
eh?
better. Like that. Like
I'm ready for the flying cars, to tell you the
Yeah.
truth. I'm
Well,
totally.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Back to the
It
future.
reminds me, like with like Guy was talking about the precariat. It's like people actually like if you have basic income, then being in the precariat or having a kind of a job situation where you're not the same job for 40 years is actually something people want. It's actually preferable. It's the ability to be able to try this out, try that out, do some retraining, do some other thing is fine. And yeah, like as a janitor, it's like it's not just it's like contracts are getting smaller and you have that side of it too. So it's not just I'm not as worried about like a robot coming along, printing a pink slip out and saying thank you for your service, Tom. It's like the jobs themselves might be like, well, wait a minute, we don't really need to have an old school like car dealership. We can just go online and we can do sales that way. And
Which
yeah,
happened during COVID.
we don't need Tom. Sorry, but
Well, you know what, Tom? Like we've talked about this before on when you've been on before. At least I've talked with you about it. But you talk about blue collar jobs like janitors and waitresses and waiters and people like that.
Yeah.
There's a real problem because you have all this like we know, for example, the costs of living downtown
Yes.
are so massive now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
nobody
That's another reason for
you
labor
used
shortage.
to be that if you wanted to be a waitress downtown at whatever restaurant, you could live and work downtown.
Yeah.
Whereas now you have people that are busing in from like Abbotsford or like worse.
It's like like they're doing 3 jobs, 4 jobs. I can't even do it. Gone.
Yeah.
And so it's like, where's everyone gone? Well, they can't stay here.
Well,
Like-
yeah.
and that's a real
Yeah.
problem, I think.
Well, especially with the traffic gridlock, right? I mean, one little hiccup, now you lose all those jobs for that whole day.
Yeah, like I've got a
Yeah.
blog I'm working on. Oh yeah, I was gonna talk about this when it comes to the subject of climate change again. It's kind of like I went to the rally and I wrote about this and was absolutely frustrated about how I had to drive like originally I wanted to not drive that day because I mean I'm going to a climate rally, but I ended up having to drive like crazy in order to have the time to make it to a climate rally. Fuck's sakes. Okay. Like, it's like I'm writing about it in my blog where it's like you go to the dentist and you're having the surgery done and the dentist goes, you know what? I quit, and walks away. And you're like, oh fuck. It's like that. It's like we've done half the solution. We got to get rid of the gas. Yes, but people are still working. Well, we got to get rid of the gas, but they're still working. We got to get it. You see that, like when it comes to bike lanes and all this other stuff, we want people to slow down, give them the opportunity to do it. Like, you know.
Yeah.
No, you're right.
Yeah,
Well,
roads where we're going, we don't need roads.
They were talking about 15-minute cities for that reason, like starting to build like Calgary and Edmonton. It's urban sprawl is a huge thing. Like we just went through this whole housing thing with the city of Calgary and they did this whole public hearing for 3 days. It was a marathon and most people were arguing. I mean, you know, they put out conspiracies about 15-minute cities. Well, that's how we used to build cities, is that you could walk within, you know, walk or ride your bike within 10 to 15 minutes to everything that you needed in your community. And it was like every community was like its own little widget. It didn't mean that you couldn't leave the community. It meant that you didn't have to leave and you didn't have to spend all those extra resources and energy, whether that was your personal energy
it's like building hubs around your transit infrastructure. It's building more mass transit. Then the problem is what I see out here in BC is now we got Highway 1, which anyone familiar with that? I mean, it just becomes it's like a parking lot. I hear it from a friend of mine who travels it nonstop. He says, "Oh, for fuck's sakes!" He said, "It's a gridlock all the way down. Like it's bumper to bumper."
It's like coming. I remember even in the late 90s, early 2000s, just trying to get from downtown Vancouver onto the King George.
Yeah,
I mean that was gridlock then, and now, by the way, all you people from BC and Ontario, quit coming to Alberta because now I have gridlock.
See,
I was trying to think of the name of the guy. Sorry, I'm just going to cut in quick. There was an academic, and I can't think of his name. I was trying to find it, but as he explained, like our cities are basically they've been reshaped because of the car. It's like, we got the drive-ins and like you have the suburbs over here and the downtown over here. Like Victoria used to be Government Street for Government Street was a shopping district, and you had people around there, and so it was based like a 15-minute city because there were no cars. It wouldn't make sense to have Mayfair Mall. It wouldn't make sense to have Hillside Mall. Everything would be where the people are, because otherwise, like that's actually the original Victoria Public Market. Like they have a new kind of trendy one, but the original one was right across from City Hall. It bombed. Why? Because it was too far away from the Government Street shopping district. So no one was going there.
That's
and then cars happened,
Well, it's true. I mean, that's the argument. You got to make it easier. Like in Calgary, one of the biggest obstacles to us doing this is actually not the conspiracy theorists. It's the NIMBYs. You got these people that have been living in their houses. They bought it in 1950. And now people that are their age when they bought that house can't afford to buy a house. And we're trying to increase density and make things more accessible and start building more infrastructure closer to communities, and as well as densifying them. And then you got these, I literally heard a lady, like one of them, and she was literally going, well, because they were trying to explain to her that the rezoning wasn't actually going to affect her. It wasn't actually going to affect you. You don't have to develop your property and you don't have to do this. It just gives you the more freedom to do so if you want to. And then her answer to that was, well, then what if my neighbor decides to do it? And then we have all these new people moving into our neighborhood. And I'm like,
oh yes.
They
push back against land value tax as well. Yeah. Even though it's a more progressive tax, it's like, well, that I built it up. This is my, and it's like we got to break somewhere.
I know, and it's like, don't you want to give your grandkids that? I mean, most of these people were like, the people that were making this argument were like, you know, in their 70s and 80s. And I'm like, don't you want your grandkids to
Yeah.
have the same opportunity that you had? Like, I don't,
Yeah.
how much longer are you going to be in that house? And
Well-
what about your
Well-
grandkids?
Well, that's the thing is, one of the things with densification is we have all the land in the world in this country.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of land.
We have
We could be building brand new cities to new specifications, right? We have the land for it. I mean, and this is where, with all this urban sprawl that we've built, and it's like, if you took a look at Abbotsford 15 years ago, 20 years ago, the urban sprawl in there is just insane. And I mean, I lived in Abbotsford for a bit. I lived in Chilliwack, and I got to tell you, Chilliwack has grown up quite a bit to the point of where it takes 20 minutes from going from one end of, Vetter Road from Sardis down to the other end.
I know where that is.
So,
Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
Right.
Wow.
And that's a small city. Okay.
Yeah.
That is a small city, but that's how densified it's become. And the arteries haven't been improved. And then they want to go and add buses on here that don't pull off into their own side lanes and their side
Right.
parking. So they stop in the middle of the highway. Like,
Yeah.
the
Here we
level,
go. Step
like
on
the
up.
level of thinking that we have here with the people that are these city planners, yes, let's densify, but in the same time with densification, we have to go and solve the transportation problem as well. And,
Accessibility is huge.
Yeah.
and if the transportation system is running with Neolithic incompetence, then you're not going to get people to use it. It's like, for example, they had a bus line that goes from one end of town to the other. Well, before they started changing things, it took you 45 minutes to go and get from the stop you got on to the entire stop that you want to get on, which would have taken you 15 minutes driving.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, especially out towards Sardis, right? Between Chilliwack and Sardis area. I mean,
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
but they did upgrade the system there. They're still upgrading it. But the problem we have here is when it comes to solving the transportation problem, it's not just, the people there, it's the transportations further into like Vancouver Central.
yeah.
And, the Sky Train, for example. I mean, I went to Expo 86 and I got on the maglev there at the Japan Pavilion. And I don't know if anyone of you guys ever got to get on that sucker. Because
HSST.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yes.
Yeah.
exactly.
Right on.
Definitely.
Right.
That thing was
This is
amazing. I thought it was so cool.
Right. This is technology that could take you.
The screen machine too.
Well, no, it's like this could take you, for example, from if you want to go from Chilliwack to Abbotsford,
Yeah.
by maglev, it's 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
Yeah,
we're
it's-
doing that in Alberta. We're building a one of those bullet trains that to get from between Edmonton and Calgary. Yeah.
But
Oh,
is
wow.
it going to be on rail or is it going to be on maglev? Because it's two different technologies.
It's in the tube where it kind of, I don't know, it kind of
Okay. Well, I'll
yeah,
have to-
it's not
I'll
an
have- well,
actual rail. It hyper what is
okay,
that
then
word?
it'd be then it'd be maglev most likely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, and this is
faster.
right, and this is where we need to take a look at all of this technology to deal with the cars on the road and all this stuff. And yes, this affects people with disabilities as well. Is
Oh, for
having
sure.
when you have to go to an appointment, a doctor's appointment, and it takes you 3 transfers to just get where you need to go, or or you're sitting here and it's like 45 minutes and it takes your entire day just to deal with one medical appointment,
Yeah.
right?
Well, even handy dart, there's a lot of people that you have to transfer from one handy dart to another handy dart. I mean,
Yeah.
it's bad enough even just
Or
just to get onto one handy dart, but then if
And you
there
got
are transfer points for handy dart too. So
Yeah.
you have to get
I
off
didn't
a
know
handy
that.
dart and onto another one, and it's just
and from
crazy.
a driving perspective, I had to get my loved one from her doctor's office to the pharmacy, but of course they put a kind of car-free area in the middle on Richardson. So I'm
Right.
like, so I was stupid. I'm like, oh, we can just cut straight across. No, so yeah, I had to go all the way back, all the way around. I'm like, you guys want me to use my car less, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's like
If
these
we
people-
can free more people up so they don't have to be on the road, then the few people who have no choice but to use a car or to use something like it until we come up with flying air choppers or something. Like
Well,
until
we're working on
then,
I
like
mean,
at
you
least that we could be like,
Transporter
okay,
technology.
you know,
Hmm.
because
I mean, you got the,
it's mad.
transportation like
See,
Victoria down to Duncan. You can go, you can't get back and forth throughout the day, but why they want
Yeah.
people to take transit? It's like,
Well, I
Well,
can't even take
exactly.
transit in Calgary. Like I've had to tell, I keep telling them my car is my mobility device. I've Access Calgary, which is the same as the Handy Dart in BC, is atrocious. One time I was, you know, like I'd be in like a rehab program or whatever, and they're like, oh, if you miss 2 appointments, we'll cancel you. Well, I missed an appointment because that the disability bus went past you,
Yeah.
drove me around for 2 hours, and brought me back a half an hour late. And this happens all the time. Or they missed you completely, and then the other program turns around and penalizes you through something that you had absolutely
No
no
fault of
control
yours.
over.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
finally, I just said, enough. I need my car on the road. This is my mobility device. I can get to my appointments. I can do what I have to do, and I don't have to worry about driving around for 4 hours to do a 30-minute appointment.
exactly, the freedom of
The
travel.
government doesn't
of,
the government doesn't realize how much money they could save by just simply increasing social assistance rates for just transportation. The amount of people that are on disability, like yourself, Cassandra, that could afford a car on disability payments would mean that they would be not have to maybe spend the extra $200,000 on an accessibility bus in
Well,
that
and
little tiny town.
I wish they would
Oh,
let me
yeah.
have an
One
electric.
person that
I'd like
needs
to
it.
have an electric car, but I am priced
Oh,
out of that
Yeah,
too.
of course.
Like
Yeah.
I'm all for
Same
that,
here.
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
I'm priced out of it.
here in BC,
Cassandra.
they make you have the choice, right, Brent? It's
Right.
like you can have a bus pass or a little bit extra for food, but you can't have both.
Can't have both. No, no.
You have
no,
to choose
no.
between a bus pass and
I
food.
know.
I just come back to the thing that was said to Kim Pate by I think it was actually by a conservative senator, Senator Kim Pate. He said, Kim, if we could go after like money laundering and like all these other things, we could pay for all your ideas and then some. And it's like
But,
we haven't. The money's there. Like,
but they changed the whole system, Neil. They changed it all because 5 people or 6
5 people wanted it, yeah,
The whole province. changed the
or
whole
5 people
system.
didn't want it, I should say.
Yeah.
Well,
They
let's
didn't want
not
the bus pass.
let's not forget that currency and money is all made up.
yes.
It's an
Yeah.
agreed concept that we've
Yeah.
all agreed to
That's right.
as a society and as a world, that it has a value.
Yeah.
So this whole nonsense, oh, there's not enough too much money, or we can't create this money, all of this is nonsense that they've thrown at us to go and say to keep us in a state of scarcity.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this is
Thank
what
you.
the situation is designed to do, is to keep us in a state of scarcity. You know, so it's, you know, even, you know, to me, it's like, sure, the Constitution Act says, you know, no cruel and unusual punishment and torture, but everything that they've designed does just that.
Yeah.
But
Right?
I'm gonna move the mic over to Dan, but get Dan's take on this. But Dan, the in BC for the our bus pass system, they blame the other government, right? Doing the blame game because they dismantled the computer system. Really, I used to work with DOS since I was a little kid, so I know DOS inside out. I did batch programming.
Nice.
But hey,
Wow,
but
I
don't
was
worry,
doing
the
basics.
seniors still have the same system. When I go on the bus, I look up they have these little charts on the bus, like advertising, right, for different companies. And I see this one, BC Transit, bus pass program. It says right there, yeah, you can have the seniors, $45. Oh, they still have theirs. To learn more about the bus pass program, go to blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I mean, how did that magically change? Like, they dismantled the system. And then I had media ask me, because I was advocating really hard on it. Is that true? Did they dismantle it? I go, I'm not buying into it. I said, no, no. It can give you a copy and paste. I can even put it onto a disk. I can burn those disks and put it right on there where you used to be able to put it into your disk drive, make a copy,
Yeah.
and paste.
Yeah.
And now I should burn those disks. It'd be so easy. Boom.
See, and this is where, getting the government out of the way to give you that freedom of choice.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the biggest issue that currently stands in the way is, they deliberately make this so everything is extremely difficult for everybody that's disabled.
Yep.
It's like, you want to have a part-time job. Oh, you could run the risk of being audited just
Yeah.
because you took the part-time job,
Mhm.
right? Just because you took it.
I
right?
went in,
Yep.
I went into a program. Well, first of all, when I first became disabled, I was being paid as the company I was working for was paying me as a contractor. So I had to have a company. I went in asked for income support, and I laid everything on the table and said, this is my company, this is my bank statements, this is everything. So
Yep.
everything was up front. And then they investigated me. Then I turned around and I entered a program, an entrepreneurship program, to help me become self-employed so I could earn extra income. And it was one that was specifically earmarked with money for people with disabilities on a disability program.
Oh, okay.
And then they turned around, well, and investigated me again.
Oh my
and
God.
I'm like,
Yeah.
like, it's you have a business, and it's like, just because I have a business doesn't mean I'm making any money.
How much change do you have in your pocket? Oh, hang on, let me see here.
I mean,
Well, when they did that to me,
nickel. Oh, hang on, I got a penny. I remember the pennies back then. Hang on, I got a penny. Wait a minute, I think in my other pocket. Wait a minute, my wallet's right here. Hang on. Yeah, I remember there's a penny there. Yeah, just, are you trying to be funny or sarcastic? And I said, oh, I'm being very sarcastic actually, but I do have humor too. Just, can you please lean a little bit further back away from my desk? I go, why is that? Because my stapler's right there. What, you think I'm going to attack you with a stapler? I go, oh my God.
It's because we're all cheats. It's because we're all cheats, varmints, and deadbeats.
well, I mean, and we're not right. We're disabled. We can't be right in the head, you know.
See, and this is why, this is why I came with the idea of universally basic income, is to get rid of that stigmatization of disabled people and people that don't work or just can't work, or in retired people. It's like we create these categories, right? And all of these things are designed to divide us and hate
It's a
each other.
caste system, like they had.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly right. It's a caste system. It's designed to keep us fighting with one another and keep us, instead of going and solving problems. So to me, I think that simplifying the system is the best move forward, because I don't know, they just feel the need to go and find some reason to harass you. Like when they audited me, they hit me with 5, and one of them was related to my business, and my business was losing money. And,
exactly.
Right. So they pissed me off to the nth degree. And I'm a computer guy. I've got computer savvy. So my billing program printed out a PDF with 973 pages. I'm like, that's not going to do. So I got a divider that divided that into 973 PDFs. That means they have to open every single one to print them. And then I added every single piece of paper that was related to my billing and expenses, and all the rest of the stuff as individual PDFs. So they had to print everything. So the lady who they third-partied me to put me, because I basically threatened them, and after they threatened me, you get mad after they get you with 5 audits all at the same time, right? So I just lost it on them. So that's the reason for that. So basically, by the time the audit was over, the lady that was dealing with me at the third party, I had to print almost 3,000 pages. And then she printed them, put them in the box, and sent them to welfare. And it was like, here you go, here's your audit. Have fun.
I remember a time where the workers used to say, well, yeah, you need to submit in the documentation on time. So you give them the documentation, then they lose the information. But that was a time where they said, well, we need you to come in here. So I remember having a $10 bill. I had a $10 bill, a $20 bill, and a $5 bill. At $35, I had $10 more I needed to get the bus pass. And so that's what she said, move a little bit further away from my desk here, the staple. I go, well, you want me to staple this money together so we don't lose it because you lost my freaking paperwork? I need $10 more. And she says, what's that transfer from one account to the other one? I go, because I was transferring my money out so that I could take it out of the bank machine so I wouldn't get charged a service charge. She said, so you're taking money from your own account to the other one? I go, yeah, it's called transfer my own money.
It makes you wonder if these people actually have bank accounts and understand how they don't understand how they work. Like, I had people that were trying to keep me afloat when I was waiting for AISH and I spent through my entire savings that I had saved working before I applied for and I borrowed money off of friends before I got to the point where I applied for income support.
Yeah, but that's what they
And-
want, though. They want you to drain all your resources down to see.
Well, yeah, and so
Oh,
but it was anyway. Oh, you made me forget. But yeah, so I'm
Sorry.
making that transition, and they're going through. Well, you got this e-transfer,
oh,
and
yeah.
and I'm like, because my friend loaned me $200 because I was short on my rent, and I have to pay that money back.
Yeah.
Well, can you provide? And I had to go through, and they wanted letters from
Oh.
each person that did an e-transfer,
Yeah.
and I'm
Oh
like,
my
are
God.
you can? Why don't you just wait? Ask me in a couple months, and I'll send you 3 months worth of bank statements, and you can see me paying them back at $50 a month. Like, what do you need? Like,
They want proof. They want proof of why there's transactions in the account.
Well-
and you know what they used to say, though, just before you jump in, is why don't you just have cash on hand so that it's
So we
easier.
can take it away from you. It's
Yeah.
like how much you have so we can take it. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, this is, this is where the ludicrous levels of thinking come from, is thinking that they need to,
micromanage your.
micromanage your life, tell you exactly how to live. And it's like, I mean, it really does make me understand, how people are on disability are actually looking at MAID because of how they're treating people on disability. It's absolutely vile and disgusting that people that are disabled are thinking this route, because our government absolutely does not care.
We got people that are terrified, that want to work, but they're terrified to work, even though, like in Alberta, we're allowed to make the first $1,072 is 100% exempt. And then everything after that up to $2,009 is 50%. So if you make $2,009 in employment income, they only deduct $350. But because people are so afraid of getting just even any deductions, they're afraid to work more than receive more than the 1,072, or they're afraid to work at all because of what they put you through in declaring your income.
Yeah, or
they're
you
just terrified to work at all.
Yeah,
Well,
or
exactly.
Hit some
in on
tripwire. Yeah.
Well,
Because,
what I was gonna. Sorry, Brent.
Yeah, I remember times where I was working at McDonald's. Like I used to do janitorial maintenance work, right? So I'd work all night. I'd get home at like 7 o'clock in the morning, and of course it'd take you like maybe a couple hour or 2 hours to wind down and fall asleep. Depends on what kind of night it was. If it was a bad night, as long as the bat didn't all blow up and overflow on you, I remember that. So I'm scrambling around and getting shit on the first thing in the morning. Why is the floor all slippery? Well, I don't know. I mean, I must have spilled something. Meanwhile, the whole floor was flooded. They didn't realize. But I mean, anyway, I remember one time where I didn't put the stub in. Like I was just so wiped out, and then I didn't get time because it was like during the weekdays. So finally, it's like, oh, well, you didn't put it in time. Are you trying to not declare it for that month? I said, no, I'm going to put it in tomorrow. Well, now it's the beginning of the next fiscal month. It needs to be in by time. I go, what are you trying to tell me? A cheat? A varmint? I remember using that word, varmint.
Yeah.
Where'd you get that word from?
Well, but all of
Cheat,
this,
cheat, varmint, and deadbeat.
Yeah.
but all of this
To
that
quote,
we're talking
Mike
about
Harcourt.
all of this we're talking about is exactly why, when we did the
Why we need
disability, why we wanted a basic income administered by the federal government. It's why we're talking about basic income now, whether it's a guaranteed basic income or a universal. I mean, one way or the other, that's the argument. Get rid of the means testing and the telling you how to budget your life, like
how to live.
Well, exactly.
We got another comment from live chat from TC, and he, I'm assuming it's he, says he's talking about marriage equity.
We're fighting for that in Alberta.
And that's a big one. But what I was going to say, like when my first wife died, I've shared before. I mean, I gave all this information to the office, to the social assistance office, and like we were saying before, they lost it all. and it's like, am I supposed to babysit them at my worst time of my life when I just lost my wife? And it's like, oh, we're sorry, we lost all your stuff. And it's like, And then, like I've shared before too, they're like, well, now we have to claw all this money away from you, like $700 clawback, right? But then once I found out that I was getting a $700 clawback, I then got a call from, and I've shared this before, I got a call from the Ministry of Children and Families, and they said, well, you know what? We'll give you $800 a month if you give your son to somebody else to look after. So we'll pay somebody else to look after your son. So how disrespectful is that? To say
Well,
that
I had a
say that
friend
me
that
as a father doesn't deserve the money, but somebody else, I can give my son to somebody else and they can get the money.
I had
So
a
that's
friend
just
that
abuse.
went through
That's messed up. Yeah.
went through something like that in Ontario where it was like he's the full-time he's a single dad, he's on disability, but he was telling me it came to a point in his life when he was together with his wife, when he was becoming more and more disabled, where he had to basically make that choice of it's like, well, you can either like give up your child or give them to your wife, or you can it's just a non-choice. Like you're supposed to give up the care of your child in order to receive a benefit. And it's like, well, you already can't work very much in the first place.
It's not even that I
benefit?
received it. It's not even that I received the
No,
benefit.
I know.
It's like I have to give that benefit to somebody else to look after my son. It's like,
well, that's what
I
I'm
don't
saying,
deserve it. Somebody else does.
I know.
Yeah.
It's
another thing,
I mean,
though,
it's
for TC's comment regarding marriage equality. So, okay, if I'm going to dive into this topic next anyway, it's going to be about RGI. So here's a basically a formula based on your household income, TC. So if you got your say a wife's living in with you, all right, and now it's based on your income. If you wanted having say rent geared to income, so it's based on your household income. Now, if that's basically under like say a BC housing umbrella type of deal, if you got like public housing, that's what the government calls it, public housing. Then there's the private sector. Private sector is the traditional apartment buildings that a lot of PWD live in, like a high percentage amount of PWD live in market housing. I call it the private sector. It's just easier to break it down into categories. It's like how the government likes to pin disabled people against disabled people. Public versus.
And I have an argument, because a lot of people, when you talk about, because they think, well, if you're why should you get it if your partner or whatever?
Yeah.
And even I've heard that from disabled people. And here's my argument for marriage equity with disability income is that so when I was hit by the truck, I was making about $65,000 a year. If I had been in a relationship and my partner was making $65,000 a year as well, we would have just lost $65,000 a year. And since my care with my disabilities costs $65,000 a year, we're losing $65,000 a year and then adding $65,000 in expenses. And right. And so now we've got $65,000 in income, but we've got $130,000 in life expenses to live.
That's what I mean. So now the system's actually hurting the people that it's supposed to be helping. And now in BC, that threshold, like I know one day I was going to be having you on, Cassandra, about talking about this one segment. So we'll talk about it now, but another time we're going to have you on too. Now, in BC versus Alberta, I don't know about Ontario, but there's that threshold. They call it household threshold. Now BC
income threshold,
income threshold. I believe it's like 28,000 in BC. It used to be 26. So the reason why I know a little bit more about this, and it still grinds my freaking nerves. All right, it just pisses me off because my mom and I, my brother, we went through this. My mom brought me up since I was little tiny little toddler.
I think Dan has the swear jar. Bring out the swear jar, Dan.
Okay. So it actually fucking pisses me off. Oh, bro, that's a $2. That's a toonie there, Brett. But what happened is that it came down to the government was administrating old age security for my mom, and she had turned and she had to get out of that same worker that was administrating PWD. So I got to know who the worker was at the time. Well, at the time, I wasn't even on PWD. I was actually working full time in a restaurant, a 50s, 60s diner. It was advised to me that eventually I would not be able to keep doing that kind of work. And it was suggested that I should go apply for PWD. So I did. I didn't want to. I was kicking and screaming and hollering, but my doctor said, "Don't worry. Like, the system's there to protect you." And I said, "Well, yeah, it's like it's there." I got on just after they got rid of pensions. Just after, literally just.
Yeah, I missed it too. I missed the cutoff too.
So but my doctor said, "Don't worry, the system's there. It'll protect you. Like, in case something happens, you're there. It's going to be there to help you. But I can't sign off on getting you all these supplements that the government says, you have to have all these conditions, Brent. You got to have Crohn's disease. You got to have, all these things." Like I said, "Okay, but all these flashy headlines. You can have this." Yeah. So anyway, long story short is, so I got on, and when I got on, it was actually brought to my attention that now, based on the household income, it's either you're going to have to go or your brother's going to have to go, because my mom's pension was at a certain amount, right? It was under that $26,000 threshold. So because my brother was actually working for himself, he had his own business going. They wanted to see all household income, including mine and his and my mom's. It actually ballooned up to over $60,000 in total. Well, I mean, they said that's way above. So even with my brother going, between my mom and me, it was really touch and go, because our rates were still so low. And I said to the workers, "So what happens when they get a rate increase? If mine keeps going up over time and my mom's does, well, then it's either you are going to have to go. Your mom's obviously going to stay." So yeah, that's basically how it works. That's
right.
So
you wanted me to mention, so what the analysis that I had done was that, because I was looking, because I'm from, my dad was born in Bashaw, but I was born and raised in BC, and my mom lives in BC, and she's aging. And so when I was looking at the living wage calculation, the living wage in BC, and I'm just picking the most expensive area, was like 50,000. And then in Alberta, it was 48,000. Okay. So it's a little bit less, but the low income threshold, or that they use to determine whether you get certain services or you have to pay for them. Okay. In BC is 30,000, and in Alberta is 48.
Wow. Because I can give you an example. Like, if I went to a rec center, I know in Langley, when we lived out there, we went to a rec center, and stay fit. I mean, so here's the thing: based on household income, again, municipal, local government, they said, "Oh, well, your income, either both of you, you can, Sonia, you can have the pass, but Brent, you can't have that pass because your income's going to be too high based on household income." Again, it's like you can't have it. We got
disabled against disabled again.
Yeah, but in Victoria, they had the same formula. They said, "However, we'll let it go. We'll let it go. Don't worry about it." They said, because it's the government. They said it's the government. It hasn't changed this thing. So it's like local versus they blaming the provincial. So it's like back and forth. But
but it doesn't make sense to me that the low income threshold to get certain services, especially like disability or senior services, is 30,000 in BC, when the living wage is about 50,000. And Alberta's Alberta's threshold is equal to what a livable wage is.
So it's like 30 versus 48. It's like, wow.
And my mom's $200 just over annually what she needs, and that's been a barrier to getting her services. Yeah,
we've got 3 hands up now, so I'm going to be the moderator here. I'll start with Joseph.
Oh, hey folks. So I'm scouring the Ontario website right now, and the Ontario Disability Support Program and Ontario Works statistics have been updating since yesterday. They're still encountering errors. They're trying to do new charts. They're doing something odd with Ontario Open Data, where they're creating a whole new data set for the caseloads and removing all the data for 2019, believe it or not.
Well, that sounds like a
2019.
conservative government.
And,
How
to do.
convenient. How convenient.
the characteristics is still not
Welcome
been
to Alberta,
updated.
Joseph.
The caseload characteristics, which is when they break down how long they've been on social assistance, right? Still was not updated from the last major update 2 months ago, what they did, and that never went to Ontario Open Data. So now they're dumping literally over a year's worth of statistics into Ontario Open Data right now. They've been spending days working on it. You can see it online. Natalia updated the Ontario Open Data for social assistance caseloads 18 times yesterday. And it's the first time it's had an update in 9 months.
Wow. But
Wow.
So
in BC, they're going to be getting a new computer system in 2 years.
no. This means that something is changing with MCCSS.
Oh,
Something is changing with the ministry if they're finally getting caught up with the statistics. They did this the last time during the budget. Ontario budget came out, they released the statistics that day, and then the minister quit the next day. And there was no paying attention.
The numbers were that good, eh?
The numbers were that good, that bad, that she quit the next day, and nobody even realized that the numbers came out. There was no media coverage saying, hey, there was a 12% increase in social assistance.
Because she ran for the hills.
She ran for the hills. She
Maybe the
quit,
deer
and that
chased her.
buried the story. So they're now updating all these statistics. Interesting to note, if you want to grab a screenshot, go for it on the Ontario Open Data site. It actually tells you that the new one is Social Assistance Caseload ODSP August 2022 instead of 2023. So they can't even get the fucking title right of the data set.
well, you know, Joseph, we had out here.
So
One of our
here's
ministers coming up with a
interesting.
new computer system program in 2 years, but it can't handle big payouts. So that's why they need the new system.
Well,
Because
that was their excuse for only
yeah.
not giving disability more money. Like it costs more to live in BC than it does in Alberta. In Alberta, my base amount is $17.87. And then but it costs a little bit less to live here, not much anymore. But you know what I mean? Like they're only getting like 14 something with the new update. It's another 120.
1483.50.
And they were like,
that's because no province wants to have a major 10%, 12%, 15% increase in their assistance rates.
In Alberta, which has been conservative forever, they gave us when under a conservative PC government, they gave us a over $500 increase at one time.
Whoa.
And now they've given us an
I remember that.
and then the NDP after that raised us a little bit more and indexed us to inflation. And that's why. So I mean, Malcolmson's excuse was that was what he's talking about was the computer system, because they were saying, well, you've raised us 4 times. Her excuse for not giving them is like, well, we've given you 4 raises, but none of those raises has brought them even to the what they call the market basket measure of poverty line. It hasn't even brought them there.
No.
Let alone giving them a livable income. And the whole excuse is that the computer system can't do it.
It can't handle big increase. Yeah, it wasn't
feed the
designed.
hamsters. Feed the hamsters.
Like they must think we're idiots. Like,
Well, I remember
They do.
I remember
Like-
sitting in a meeting with the minister, and the minister said in a meeting, Sonia was there, Jeff was there, and I was there.
Yeah.
And they said, well, the computer system wasn't designed to handle big payouts, like bigger increases. So we're coming out with the new modernized one, the state of the art. It's going to handle more bigger payouts. And I said, oh, when's that going to happen? 2 years. I go, and then Jeff's like, well, so
Just
what are we going with? Are we going with the LICO formula or the MBM? And he's jaw dropped. And so we're actually going with my counterpart, Carla Quantrell's recommendation. And so we're going to be going with the market basket measure. And his jaw drops. He's like, and yeah, so sorry, but yeah, I mean, and it's going to be substantially less than what the amount is
Well,
going
what
forward.
will be interesting is when the new GLBI report comes out, because the last one that it came out with was using the low income measure. The low income measure is no longer the official poverty line in
No,
Canada.
no, it's the, but the market basket, that my whole argument, like, and that's what I was
Now
trying to
they're going to
explain.
change the formula.
The market basket measure doesn't, like, I actually brought up there's a whole bunch of people that did a bunch of analysis on it, including, of all things, the Fraser Institute, which is, you know, super conservative.
Yeah.
And even they said that the market basket measure was inadequate because it just doesn't take into account even though some of those things it claims to take into account, you can clearly see where it doesn't take those things into account. And then there's other things that they call discretionary that are actually basic needs, especially if you have a disability.
Yeah.
And then whereas the living wage calculation actually takes into account, it calls those what they call discretionary, they actually included as a basic need. So things like prescription medication, for instance, and stuff like that. So it's like, and rent. I mean, they say they count rent, but it's nowhere. Anybody knows that the market basket measure is not including rent, because if we know how much rent is.
Oh my God!
Right, and that would be another 2,000 more. We would be getting above the poverty a month above the poverty line. So
you look in Vancouver, it's $4,000 for a 2-bedroom, and then even in Victoria, $2,600 for a 1-bedroom. But they give you $375, but you got to prove that your rent went up, so they'll give you up to $500, but it only went to. But
ask me, how can they sit there and claim that the market basket measure includes rent when what it brings you to doesn't even cover what rent actually is?
That article by, what was it, the Canadian Center for Policy Alternatives, where it's like it's like $46 an hour or something like that in Victoria. Like, it was like Robert what was it? Robert Reich said this, like, back in 2017. Like, if American minimum wage had kept up the cost of living, it'd be $24 an hour. This is 2017. Convert that to Canadian, it's 30. Then you go, that's 2017. Now push it forward and then add inflation as well. So it's just like, that's why I just say it's absolutely insanity to say that. Well, they're not really trying. They're trying so hard.
I was just going to butt in a little bit. We're at 2:30 now, so we should be wrapping up, doing closing comments from everybody.
Maybe about we got what, 15-20 minutes, and then we'll
for closing comments. So we just could go around.
Okay.
We'll let MJ go because he was waiting.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. You know, one of the things that when it comes to the whole situation in BC is they make it so that if because it's based on your family income, and I don't know if it's the same thing elsewhere, it's my disability. It's not my family's disability, right?
Yeah.
Why am I penalized? Why are they penalized? So they make it so that if I can't go and have a relationship with someone and get married, because all of a sudden then I get thrown off because she makes too much money, and then I become her dependent. How fair is that? So this is why I thought about this whole idea of universally available basic income. If we get rid of all the terms and conditions, we get rid of all the nonsense that goes and creates this chaos, then people can have a life they choose. You get
autonomy.
Exactly. And this is something they don't want. And another thing, they make it so you can't own a home, right? You can't own a home. There's pride in owning a home or an apartment or whatever it is you own. There's pride in that. And it gives a person a sense of something, it's deep inside. It gives them that something. And when they do this, it's basically they're torturing us. And to me, I want to get rid of that torture. I want to get rid of this idiocracy that's been built in and baked into the system that sits here and just abuses everyone at every turn. I mean, we have a rough enough life as it is, being disabled. Why do we need to be abused anymore by our own government? The
government that we pay, a lot of us pay taxes to our entire lives.
Right. I mean, it's like, you got to justify this and justify that. Let's stop. Let's just stop and stop dealing with all of that nonsense.
I remember a time, MJ, where there was a worker who basically conveniently lost her job. Yeah, thanks to me.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, and I was working for a big corporation, like I mentioned earlier in our show. You know, my boss, they'd have cameras. You know, they have cameras in a lot of businesses, but I mean, McDonald's had cameras everywhere, right? So I was a senior, you know, maintenance person. So I'm sitting back in their chair in the office, just joking around with my boss at the time. And I was done, you know, it was a long night and, you know, clean time. So I see this person walk into the front counter, right? So she says, "Oh, can you go find out, Brent, what that person wants up there?" She had a sheet of paper, and you know, I'm like, "Oh, okay." And she's like, "Hi." I'm like, she didn't even recognize me. I'm looking at her, thinking, "Oh my gosh!" Like I knew who that person was. And she
I
didn't
remember.
even know. Like I was just like a number to her or something, right? I'm looking at her. I go, "Hi, can I help you?" She's like, "I'm looking for a job. Can I speak to your manager?" Just give me a moment. So I went back. I said, "Oh my freaking God." She goes, "What, Brent?" She goes, "No, I'm your boss. I'm not God." I go, yeah, well, whatever. I said, whatever. Right. So she's up there and she's looking for a job. She goes, "Okay, fine, give her an application." I go, "No, she worked at the ministry's office." I said, "Oh my gosh." I said, "Today I did let her go because she was very rude and obnoxious to the clients. Like, same thing. Like, you need to submit this in. You have to do this on time, and blah, blah." So she went up there and she was pleading for a job. My boss comes up, "I'm sorry, but we're just accepting applications at this time, but we'll keep you in mind." 2 months later, her boss's boss hired her, overrided her. So anyway, I sat down with her and I said, "Hey, karma really, really bites ass, right?" She goes, "What?" I go, "Yeah."
Stop.
So I made a point to her, like, really, like what goes around comes around. You were desperate to look for a job. Hey, you know, it shows, "Why didn't I get hired the first time?" I go, "Why?" "Because I actually told my boss not to hire you." I said, "Because just to show you what it's like to be treated like shit."
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's basically what I mean. It's all about commanding respect. Like, and so these employees, they do unto others that they want done unto you. That's how my mom always taught me, Brent. Respect people. You respect people, they're going to respect you in return. Like, how do you want to be treated? You want to be treated terrible? Well, you know, and so that's, I guess, the theme of everything. It's like, that's why UBI or basic income, whatever we go upon, that's going to work going forward because the system is deliberately legislated that way and designed to hurt people and keep people suppressed. I like the topic about marriage equality. Like, that's bang on that because it's so important to have that changed because household income, yeah, it shouldn't, like MJ, you're right, you're totally bang on that.
Yeah.
It should not be based on household income. It should be based on that person, individual, their income, because it hurt my mother, God rest her soul now. It actually hurt her more. She lost her home. She had agreement with the owner who owned the home. He had passed away. The home got put over to his daughters. They got money hungry. They wanted more money. So my mom, because she was paying less income or rent, they wanted to make more to basically get her out. They made it sound like somebody was moving in, and guess what? They didn't move in. Yeah, they made an excuse. So anyway, it really hurt her because that was her home. I had to go to arbitration. We had a fight. She lost because my brother got mad. He dismantled some physical stuff on the property that he had. She put on the property, a cement barrier and a shed. He tore it down. He got pissed off. He ripped it down and he smashed the actual concrete because he's so mad. Well, because he dismantled the concrete, it's actually part of the property. And under the Tenancy Act, if you dismantle, cause damage to the property, your mother doesn't get her damage deposit back. So yeah, we had to move her into her new home, and quickly after she got put into a senior's home, and then her health went down. And I warned them, Tenancy, the branch, you do this, her health is going to go down. I couldn't live there because her income and my income wouldn't allow both of us to live in one household. Eventually, so I had to move, and so it really, the system is designed, and it hurt not just me, it hurt my mother, and that's why I advocate for change too. I want to see the system, people's lives better in the long run. So that's my rant for the day. Over to Dan.
Who else wants to
Dan,
Yeah,
chime in?
just as a quick
I'll chime
update.
in. I gotta go quick. pretty quick here, but no, I just want to say, like I think that's why we're all here, and I know that's why I became a disability advocate. I used to do social work. I became disabled through no fault of my own.
Yep.
And I never mind paying my taxes or paying into these programs, because I always felt that that was a safety net for me if God forbid the worst happened. Well, it happened.
Yeah.
And after seeing how I've been treated on it, to lose your dignity just because some guy ran a red light, and I lost, and for that I lose my dignity, all my accomplishments are erased, and just because now I've got the label of being disabled and having to take an income that I paid into most of my life, and now I have to be a reciprocant of it. And I think that's the goal. We need equity. People with disabilities, we just want the same equity. We want the same dignity that is allowed to everybody else.
Exactly.
Equality.
Yeah.
And don't forget about the petitions. I'm sure Joseph will plug it at the end.
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean,
Tara is in live chat right now. She just says, say hi to Cassandra for me.
Hi, Tara.
I mean, this is why when I was doing the math of all of these considerations, I managed, my calculations originally started off at as $2,000 a month. And that wasn't even disabled people. And I was like, okay, well, if we put disabled people into this bag, we're going to have to double this.
Yeah.
Right. That means $4,000 a month. And people think, well, $4,000 a month, that's a lot of money. Not really.
No.
People don't realize how much it costs to live out there. I mean, I live with my mom. She works, and I'm on disability, and I help out as much as I can. Right. So they make it very difficult for people to be able to do things with the current system. And I just want to simplify it. That's all I want to do, is just get the gatekeepers out of the way. I mean, I'm sorry that people will be losing their jobs with universally available basic income. I really am. But you know what? I mean, they can be retrained. They can find something else to do. That way, once you're off our backs, we could go and find a part-time job to go and work at if we want to, or volunteer here or there without having to go and give rhyme or reason. Start a business, get married, do whatever without having to define a rhyme or reason to do so.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, MJ. I'm going to move the mic over to Dan. I want Dan's a little bit of a discussion regarding your take, Dan, on RGI, like rent geared to income, about the kind of what we're talking about now is like about having that income ceiling, and how you feel that would affect so many people in so many ways, of if it being too low, and that like we're talking now, like say marriage equality, and having that ceiling so low that it's going to affect the person having, like, say there should be based on the person's individual income versus a household income, and because I mean, I know you live in RGI housing, and I mean, it makes a huge difference in people's lives, because now they've got a little bit more money. They can put the money back into society. I mean, God forbid, give people more money. I mean, wow. But but that money goes back into society, versus if it's based on a household income, now people have to now sacrifice living together.
So it's ironic we're having this conversation right now, because earlier today I was watching what's called the Planning and Housing Committee here in Toronto, Ontario.
Yeah.
And I believe the threshold was like 48 to 75,000 or something like that. Here in Toronto, we just recently got a new deputy city manager who's in charge of the Planning and Housing Committee. So basically, all these bills and stuff they talk about. And he was tasked with coming up with a staff report today to put forth to whatever the province and the feds. And the very first thing that he put on it was to raise that threshold to $150,000 a year. So I don't know if that's going to help out other people. Yeah, I'm like myself personally, I'm single, live alone with my dog, right? None of my kids are at home. So yeah, I think that would be good for people. And I agree, like, of course they have to ask you questions, right? They got to verify certain things, but overdoing it. Like, I'm glad these questions weren't around back in the days when I was on OW and ODSP. Like, what does it matter? what does it matter? You're still a disabled person. Nothing's going to change. And the fact that you have to sacrifice relationships over your living, like staying alive, it just doesn't make any sense, right? Like I think I had this talk with you, Brent, the other day, and it's like you shouldn't have to sacrifice that, because that could be your support system too, right? Like, so they need, what they need at the table is the lived experience. I tried it, and for whatever reason, there were individuals that didn't like the idea of me speaking out against it, and ergo why I'm starting a new job on Saturday, right? So and no, I'm not going to tell you where it is, Brent, because no, didn't work out so well the last time. But it's just so, and I have full faith in this guy. Just ended at that. The deputy city manager, his name's Jag Sharma, and the reason I have full faith in him from our sort of perspectives is he's actually the former CEO of Toronto Community Housing here in Toronto, so he has a full understanding, and I think he'll put his new position to good use.
Awesome. And I mean, that's awesome to hear. I mean, that ceiling threshold is like way up there, and I think like it should be. I mean, in my view, and some people would watch this later on, as a podcast or whatever, and I'd like to see it unlimited. Like, I mean, really, but have safety blocks put in place of asking pertinent information, but have it unlimited. Like, really, like the sky's unlimited. It shouldn't be a ceiling. But I mean, at least having 150,000. But
rent geared to income, and I think is just, we all need that. Nobody should have to pay more than 30% of their income.
Oh, totally. And I actually, it's ironic that I know the one show the other day, like we were talking about that, is I was talking to my manager, who is a corporate landlord, as Tom knows. I mean, he lives under that. But I mean, I actually talked to one of the stakeholders, you know what I mean? And I know, like, she's awesome. She has purple hair. I mean, sometimes she has green hair, but I mean, she gets it though. Like she was a single mother, and she was actually on a waiting list to get into subsidized housing when she was young. So she knows how the system works. And so, I mean, she moved her way up and where she is now. But she said the rents are so high. She said, going forward, everyone needs RGI rent, everyone. I go, okay, so would you want RGI in this building right now? Shows it would make no difference on the building, because what it is that you would still pay your normal rent, okay, but you would then get a dividend from the government, which would go to you as a recipient, as a tenant. You would get your income plus that income, and now you would give it to us as a bill payment. But now you've got more money in your pocket, 30%. You'd only have to, like, you only pay 30%. I go, wow. Shows now, imagine, instead of paying like over $700, okay, like, and that's over 50% of your income, now you're going to be paying like $300 to $400. Now you've got an extra $300 something in your pocket that you could go and put out in the community, or save it up, or go, maybe, God forbid, go to the Okanagan, go to another province and maybe help their community out, local economy. I mean, it's endless. And she thinks it's a fabulous idea. She said, going forward, everyone's going to need that.
Well, this is
never going to come down.
So we should get closing comments from Tom and maybe Joseph, because we do have to wrap up now.
Okay.
So.
Oh, and I just want to tell Joseph one thing. So ARISE, because I heard him stumbling, it stands for AISH Recipient Seeking Equity.
Oh, cool.
AISH Recipient Seeking Equity. It's a new group I just became a part of out here in Alberta that's fighting for disability equity.
Nice.
So for me, I was trying to think what to say. Just wrap it all up. My main thing is valuing people beyond jobs, decoupling income from labor, because it has to happen anyway, and we need to kind of turn the corner on what's happened with meritocracy and neoliberalism and all that stuff, and go, right, that's not working anymore. It's making us all worse off for it. And as Richard Wilkinson and Kate Pickett explained in The Spirit Level, the unequal societies hurt everyone. Obviously, people on the low end the most, but it doesn't help you to drive to the hospital in your Ferrari if, guess what, you're going to have to wait 8 hours as well, pal. So, we get the communities we invest in. That's it.
Thank you, Tom, on that. And I echo that because if you give people the income, they're going to put it back in. And then regardless on if they're middle class, they got 6-figure salary. It's sad where you get doctors or nurses who can't even afford these high rents.
Yeah.
And you got the low income individuals, you've got seniors, you got people with disabilities, you name it. They need to be part of the equation too. Like we all need to be part of the equation and basically equal things out, because the way that the systems are working now, like you look at EI, I mean GIS for the seniors, OAS, old age income security, like everything, CPP, you name it, it's all there. It's the system is there. It's just fragmented all around. You know what I mean? Just put it all together. So I guess my closing comment is I want to thank each and every one of you for coming on the round table, and I want to do this again soon. Right? Well, because there's so much more like to dive into.
It was a challenge to try to moderate. Like, there's
so now,
6 people here.
Now we know how it's going to work, and I'd like to do this as like a part 2 of this segment, and we'll definitely we'll do this again. So Tom, I know Neil got to sign off in a second. Could you play like a 1-minute clip for us there?
Oh, I was going to say Joseph hasn't done his plug of DERB
has
yet.
he? Okay. Sorry.
Joseph can sing. How about that?
So Tom, you can get geared up there, but we'll pass it over to
Joseph. You're muted, actually, Joseph.
How about we have Tom play while we DERB away?
Okay. Yeah, there we are.
We can do the DERB good. Do that one.
I was like, something very quickly.
For anybody tuning in very late,
groups around the country, that differences of opinion or not, we can all work together. And if you do, you're going to fucking accomplish something, right? It's better than sitting on your duff and doing F all.
Yep, exactly. I like what you said there, Dan. You nailed it, man. Totally. Yeah, because so many things can change. I mean, everyone, like you see the DERB.ca, please sign these petitions, get them signed. Some people may say, "Oh, it's not worth it. These politicians are gonna do what they want." If we hound them and we pound away on this, we can make change happen. Let's do it. Let's DERB it.
Like you and I always talk about, Brent, is like you got to kick the door open that's a little bit ajar, right?
Yep. You
got find the door that's open and kick it down, right?
Just nail it down. Yeah. Just rip it out.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, that are tuning in too late, or need the last minute clip, right? DERB, DERB, is Disabled Emergency Relief Benefit. And why are we asking for it? Because honestly, 1 in 5 Canadians are disabled. 60% of those actually work for a living. Okay. And number 3, if anything happens, if Justin Trudeau's government ends tomorrow, where do you think they're going to go for help? They're going to ask you, because there's nowhere else to go. We need the emergency relief benefit. If CERB can happen,
and the thing is with DERB is a emergency relief benefit, and Joseph, you couldn't have said it any better than I could on that one, because having to wait 18 months to maybe 2 years to maybe get the Canada Disability Benefit going, to maybe go to all the people that it's supposed to help, I have my doubts that it's going to go to everybody that it's supposed to go to. But DERB, was just keep DERB going, and then let's translate DERB into a UBI or basic income going forward.
And
over to you.
Pay me first. Pay me first.
Yeah. There we are. We'll have some buble bits.
There you go. Yeah.
If there's 1 in 5 people that are disabled, that roughly calculates out to at 40 million Canadians. That is about 7.5 to 8 million people that are disabled.
Well, it's actually that's that identify. That's people
Wow,
over
okay.
15
yeah,
that identify.
There's
actually more.
I say it's 1 in 2 or 3.
There's people that are disabled that don't necessarily identify, but that's
And
identify.
as you get older,
it's
you
being-
get more disabilities.
Right, and this is why working, putting differences aside,
Yeah.
I mean, many of us probably have different ideological differences. I'm more of a libertarian where I want the government right out of the way. I just want a yes or no. I mean, I don't want to play games. I don't want to do nonsense. I want it simple. And that's how I think that we can go and regain freedom truly, is by getting the government out of the way as much as possible.
Autonomy of making decisions for yourself.
Exactly.
That's best for yourself.
And if you ever second guess basic income, if you don't know what it is, if you're unsure what it is, if you are thinking that it's going to, that people are just going to quit in droves, or, people are going to get lazy or whatever.
Ask
If
me and
you
Joseph,
have
yeah.
not, if you have not read, if you have not read this book, okay, Basic Income for Canadians by Dr. Evelyn Forget, if you have not read this book, you don't know basic income. Plain and simple. You just don't know it.
There's so much content out there.
Man.
There's books, there's videos.
You got the Order of Canada for a reason.
Yeah. Like for me, it's like I've listened to talks from around the world. I did this yesterday, and it's true. It's like you'll be listening to like somebody in Africa or somebody in Australia, and you'll hear like 8.5% reduction in healthcare costs, and like, I know where you got that from. It's like her work has shot around the world. Like,
most definitely. And the statistics literally are very similar no matter what pilot you go to. You see a reduction in healthcare costs, you see increase in education, you see middle age or young teenage males that would normally drop out and go to work are going for secondary education and getting smarter and getting better jobs. And people that are disabled are living better. They're able to access their means, their transportation. They're able to go see their family, not have to go see their family to go and ask for money. They get to go see their family to play cards, or
which improves family dynamics, because
yes, and that also decreases the amount of depression for people that are not disabled. There are lots of people that are at home that have a disabled son or a daughter, and they can't see them because they're always in such abject poverty. They're like, I just can't have my son come to me tomorrow and ask me for another $500. I just can't do it. And so they push them away.
Which is why autonomy is so important, right?
Yeah, or they don't have they don't have the transit that provides them to get to and from the community, and it's a stumbling block. And that's why I say just DERB it, everybody.
DERB it good.
Have you heard about the DERB? Yeah, everybody's heard about the DERB. DERB is the word.
DERB is the word.
Have you heard about the DERB? Yeah, everybody's heard about.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
We got to start punching out here. I'll let it go for a few seconds.
Here we go.
Yeah.
We're gonna punch out. Thanks.
Thanks for
tuning in again, Tom. Just Tom.
Just Tom. Yeah. You can still play, but we're gonna punch out though.
Yeah, you can keep going there, Tom. And thanks everybody for tuning in today. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for part 2 of our roundtable discussion. This has been awesome, and take care, everyone. And we'll just DERB it good. DERB.ca. Remember to sign that.
There we go.
Heard about the DERB, yeah, everybody's heard about the DERB. We got DERB.
Oh.
Just do it.